Welcome to the Women in Investing podcast, Champions with Checkbooks, where the members of our network talk about their investment journey, their learnings, and white spaces in the market that are waiting to be disrupted. Women in Investing is a community of capital allocators and venture capitalists. We were founded in 2017 to create a platform for women investors, and we are excited to say that after hundreds of meetups, masterclasses, mentoring programs, and collaborations, we are over 400 members strong. We hope you enjoy and benefit from these conversations.
This is Maya Chandrasekaran for the Women in Investing podcast. On this show, we're always excited to have people and guests who have strong opinions, who've done really interesting work, who have had non-linear journeys. And today's guest is definitely one of those people. I'm really excited to welcome Anisha Singh, the founder of She Capital. Anisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Maya, for having me. I feel honored.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I know that your journey especially has been really interesting. So let's start with that. How did you become an investor? What brought you here?
You must have heard the term accidental entrepreneur. I think this is the accidental investor. I wasn't meant to be here, but I'm here. And I think now this was probably what I was meant to do. And life is in a weird way come 360. So I started my career with the Clinton administration, helping female founders raise money. And I didn't actually ever think that that's the journey I would make backwards. After that, I did, a stint with a company in Boston around EdTech. Then I started my own company. I moved back to India. I was very clear that I wanted to come back into India. Talking 2004, I came back into India, set up my first company, which I sold to a US-based company out of Salt Lake City. And then I got the founder bug then. I loved it. I loved all the lows that came with the few that were there as well. So I moved back to India in 2009 and set up MyDala, which was an internet company. Now, if you think of 2009, there were very few and far between internet companies that it wasn't the norm. It was not a cool thing to be doing. And we set up MyDala. And along the way, what started happening, because I was one of the few internet entrepreneurs or startup entrepreneurs, as you call now, but because I was, by virtue of my gender, female, everybody invited me to speak around not just entrepreneurship, but also then touch on female founders. And when you're doing this kind of stuff, right, you start researching numbers and looking at numbers. And then they somehow don't add up. Because by then I had started mentoring a lot of female founders. I'm speaking of 2017. I had started in 2009. By 2012, I saw enough founders come in. There was interest by a lot of female founders. So it wasn't like there weren't founders in the ecosystem. And I'm talking about female founders. But the numbers weren't adding up in terms of the funding going to female founders. It seemed like an anomaly. Actually, they seemed very unbelievable because numbers said only 2%, actually 1 point some percent went to female founders, which was a little bizarre for me because, I had a startup that got funding easily and everything. And these numbers seemed a little weird. But the fact of the matter was they were real and they are real. And so something needed to be done. And here we are. So that is the genesis of She Capital, essentially. Filed for it in 2018, 2019, we got our SEBI license. And there was no turning back after that.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a great segue into, tell us a little bit more about She Capital and specifically, you've explained the why, but the what of She Capital. What is it that you look for? And the reason I ask that is also because you've heard this, I'm sure, many, many times in the market that if you are investing in female entrepreneurs, you're therefore obviously investing in small, niche, non-scalable businesses. So how do you then build a fund if that's your focus area, and what's your response?
So when we started, and I haven't gone into the why, so I'll tell you the why also. When we started She Capital, the why was very much, look, there was a niche that, or a problem that was not being fulfilled, which was female founders were not getting enough funding. And having been from this ecosystem that gave me so much, this just sounded like something that needed to be done. And we also thought it was a great niche to play at, right? My belief is that there are specialty funds or funds that play in certain verticals will do really well. For us, this was something that we felt that very strongly about, given that I had mentored females. So this was our thesis, right? That we are going to invest in women businesses, very shallow thesis at large. However, over the years, what has happened, Maya, that thesis has changed. When I started fundraising for this, what ended up happening was everybody would turn around and say, "What a great cause! What a great cause!" And we're not a cause. This is not an NGO I'm running. We're a VC fund. She Capital wants to give you and will give you better bang on the buck. That is what we said. We will give you returns. This is not a cause. Hum chanda nahi jama kar rahe hain yahan. Okay. This was the general feeling that female founders equal cause, female founders equal charity, which was the thesis. Then suddenly the thesis evolved to being, let's prove a point that diverse businesses and women-led businesses do return more on the dollar or rupee, as we call it, and they are profitable businesses. And that's been the thesis now at She Capital, which brings me to the what. If you look at She Capital and a portfolio construct, we're already, by the way, at a very high IRR. And we have returned cash back to the investors in terms of our sale, which was one of the largest sales in the fashion industry, which was Clovia to Reliance. So we're already within a portfolio of 14. We've had 5 up rounds, and I'm not talking about Clovia. So we've already gone ahead and proven women do run great businesses. And I'm not, this is not even with the alphas kicking in. We've got a couple of amazing companies that are going to come through in terms of the returns on those. So we're already proving that this is not a cause. We are actually leading on a sector of founders that just needed, a little bit cheering. That's it. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Amazing. I think you mentioned a couple of names, but it would be great if you could call out some of these success stories and what you've just described as this ability to really accelerate growth.
So, I hate doing this. I'll tell you why. Because I'm a mother. And when you ask a mother, and any
favorite child.
parent will get it, when you say, which is your favorite child, the worst thing you want to do is say any. None of them, because they all have different amazing features and amazing abilities. Some might, just progress faster than the others. My entire portco, I adore all the founders. I don't think one deserves a call out or a shout out, than the other. What we've done here is just been very conscious in terms of the portfolio construct. I think it was also because we were doing a first fund and we really needed to prove, the vision and the grit behind it.
So talk a little bit about this portfolio construct, because I know you said that was very intentional. How did you put that together?
Two things. Right? One, I've been a founder in the ecosystem since 2009. So by virtue of that and having led a consumer-facing company, we got a lot of consumer-facing startups applying to us or reaching out to us initially. That was the first thing. But I think also, secondly, we saw initially that female founders would lean towards consumer-facing businesses. And I say this that we saw this initially because I think that has changed over time. So the myth is that female founders only run consumer businesses and only scale D2C businesses, which I think is very incorrect now. You're seeing a lot of female founders building some amazingly cool deep tech companies or AI companies, and we're meeting so many of those now. Okay, so but I think in the initial days of of She Capital, which was 2019 onwards, we did see a lot of consumer companies. So by virtue of that, and my background, our portfolio construct is about 50 to 60% consumer tech, and the rest is just a horizontal spread of SaaS, sports tech, health tech, everything. Very, very cool founders that are building amazing companies that could go global.
And, I think this is really interesting evolution that you've talked about in terms of what female founders are looking at now and are building. Are there specific areas that are, really exciting to you as a fund that you are actively looking for or looking at?
By the way, this consumer thing is no diss on founders that are building for consumer, because I am a big fan of consumer. If you had to ask my thesis on how the startup ecosystem is evolving, I believe what is happening is still the fastest and the quickest exits are coming in the consumer space. Or, I've had consumer founders say, D2C, blah, blah, blah. And no, I think it's a great space to be in. That's where the quick wins are happening, great wins are happening, right?
Yep.
We're seeing that definitely. Some of the sectors apart from consumer that I am excited about is I really, really love consumer mobility. I think travel is a huge, huge segment that is finding its home ground now post COVID with a vengeance. So anything to do with that, just companies that are easing, consumer travel or things like that. And I don't mean just the travel portals. I mean other things, just innovative tech being built around reducing or making travel more flawless or helping in more sustainable travel. So I'm really excited about that segment, even though it's a niche segment. We continue to stay very, very bullish on healthcare. I think it's something like other companies or VCs. We know that that's
Never going
something
away.
that's definitely needed. So obviously one thing that we have seen in our companies, and that is why I don't call it out here, even though a lot of funds have put a general focus on it, but we've seen in general female founders tend to do this. So I don't say that I'm excited about sustainability, because fact of the matter is what we've seen after tracking our own portfolio is that there seems to be an underlying theme of sustainability, ESG, that is just inherent in a diverse team or a female led team. So even though we didn't set out as a VC to measure impact or check on sustainability, interestingly, the statistics are just really cool on what they're doing. So that seems to be the underlying theme, regardless of whether we wanted it to be or not.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a very cool thing to come out of it. As you said, without intentionality, it's happening. So kind of organically, it's part of your fund approach.
We also didn't want to say it because for some reason the impact word is a slandered word still in the industry. Everybody feels impact karenge, though there's not enough
There's no
money.
returns.
Yeah, just like female founders. Female founders and impact in there is that's a 2x of no returns coming through you. So we were very clear that this is not something, we will not call it an impact fund.
Yeah.
There are certain words that we stay away from. These are conscious moves. Only after having raised the first one that we realized that we want to stay away from. One is cause, support. We don't support. We don't. As VC, we support our portfolio. For some reason, it presses my buttons when somebody says that, because women and support, that's just something that people assume is just, they stick together, which I don't believe.
I wanted to also, to have a little bit of a chance to understand, because I know that apart from the fund, you also do a lot of ecosystem building work. You've always been a mentor, but at She Capital, you also do some of these large gatherings and convenings. Tell us a little bit about that.
When I set out to do She Capital, we realized that was going to be only so many portfolio companies. Fact of the matter, whether we want to admit it or not, there is gender inequality. Whether we want to talk about it or not, there are biases. And this is not just studies. All of us have faced it, whether we want to call it out or not. And if you haven't, then you're one of the fortunate few. Fact of the matter is, each one of us has faced some amount of bias in some way, or maybe not realized that they were having some bias. And so the idea was, what else are we going to do that causes a larger ecosystem change and quickly, right? She Capital is a fund, but at the end of the day, we're a small fund. But we want to have a larger give back into an ecosystem that I've been a part of forever and want to help female founders get to a certain scale. And so the easiest thing that we thought that we could do was bring everybody together under one roof or under close to one beach, which is what we do. Every year, have an event. It's called Together. And the reason we call it Together is we don't believe it's guys or girls, females versus males. We believe that together we all build. I've seen some amazing, amazing men who lift up women, and I've seen some women that don't lift up women. Okay, so I really believe it's all about together. And together as females, we lift each other up, together as whatever crew that comes to Goa in October for our event, we lift each other up. And so we do that once a year, which is get 150 founders in, 30 plus VCs in, some industry leaders in. And the idea of doing this is the first year when we did it, we didn't know what we were doing. We just hoped something would work. And we realized we had created magic. It's a buy invite event, so it's not a ticketed event. And people come in there and it's 36 hours of sisterhood. And you feel that. And it wasn't just about, the investment connections that got made with VCs. People walked away saying, they made sisters that were lifetime sisters. And we know that so every year it's a platform that gets created. And we realized that these founders then started leveraging each other and, just building out, cheering on each other. And that's what we wanted, right? If we cheer on each other is when the ecosystem will get lifted to wherever it does. It's not about playing in silos. This year will be its third year running. We've already got a lot of people from Silicon Valley and a lot of the unicorn founders that have RSVP'd in, and we're still setting up the dates. So obviously, touch wood, there is something right that's being done in terms of founder networking, investor founder networking. It's a cool thing. We do cool stuff. Last year, we did something where the VCs had to do a reverse pitch to founders, and they did this via making cocktails. And founders judged the cocktails that were made. So it was a cocktail, mix-off. And 3-4 VCs got together on one station and made. So it was kind of cool because VCs were in the hot seat and founders were not. We keep trying to change and mix it up and reverse it up. So, and keep it interesting all the time.
That sounds like super fun. And as you said, also very systemic. It is really about bringing everyone together, lifting everyone together. So that's amazing. As kind of a quick wind up, we'll do the usual rapid fire. If you're ready, I'm going to go for it.
I'm not ready for rapid fire, but sure, go for it.
But let's jump in. If you weren't an investor, you would be?
I don't think I'm an investor even now. I think I'm a founder. I just say I'm a founder.
Excellent. A shout out to a supporter on the journey.
Definitely my family. I couldn't have done what I do without the family. My husband, my mom-in-law, my mom, everybody, my dad, my kids, everybody, the big family.
Nice. Your go-to tactic for persuasion of a non-believer in your thesis?
I actually don't choose to, spend time on non-believers. However, that being said, now the go-to tactic is just the fun performance. I think it speaks for itself.
Just the numbers.
Yeah, just the numbers.
And a book that you wish everyone would read?
I really like Grit and I really like Factfulness. And I think both are really, really just good books to be reading anyway. And if you're a fan of longevity, then David Sinclair's book. That's really good.
That's a great one as well.
Yeah. So I'm very big into running and health and longevity. And while you're at it in summary, summer's coming up, might as well just give all three a go.
Excellent. Thank you. Those are really fantastic recommendations. Anisha, it's been amazing to chat with you and to talk about ecosystems and support and sisterhood, and more specifically, myth busting. Female plus impact definitely equals 2x returns. So it's really been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, female plus impact does equal not minus 2x, 2x or 10x. That's what we're out to prove. Thank you so much, Maya, for having me.
This podcast is produced for information and community building purposes. If you wish to learn more about our network, please reach out to us through the buttons here. Thank you for tuning in and see you another time.